Samma Sambuddha Saranai, Venerable Panure Chandrasana Thero, and dear friends in Dhamma from Geneva International Buddhist Foundation. I am so pleased to welcome all of you with compassion. It is a great opportunity for us to have the contribution of Venerable Panure Chandrasana Thero for the upliftment of Geneva Buddhist Foundation during pandemic season. From the beginning until this moment, we are organizing different kinds of Dhamma programs together with the communities from different countries, especially from Switzerland, as well as UK and Denmark, Sweden, so on, different European countries. So many Dhamma friends are with us, supporting for the success of all our programs. So it is a great pleasure to have this opportunity to invite Venerable Panadure Chandrasana Thero, according to the noble teachings of Lord Buddha, based on Four Noble Truths. Today, the most important opportunity to discuss about, according to the noble teachings, acquiring inner peace and seeing things as they are by means of the Buddhist concept of noble wisdom. Venerable Panadure Chandrasana Mahathero, who is the responsible monk, resident monk, and devotee abbot at the Nissaranawane, a famous forest hermitage located in Medirigala, Sri Lanka. He's a serious practitioner and a great scholar of Buddhism. The session will be moderated by Dr. Gayagam Hayugi. After this session, we'll have opportunity to discuss according to the noble teachings. On behalf of International Buddhist Foundation and the community and all the other Dhamma friends, we are honored to invite to Venerable Chandrasana to continue his noble teaching. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, dear Venerable Bhante. So I hope you all can hear me. Actually, it's a pleasure and respect kind of an opportunity that I was given, and I really pay my respect to International Buddhist Foundation in Geneva. So actually we were discussing Four Noble Truths, and particularly how we can practically incorporate that into our practice, and particularly with respect to Satipatthana, the development of mindfulness, how we can use in order to understand the Four Noble Truths. So first actually we discuss about the first noble truth, that is the noble truth of suffering. And there we understood actually Buddha mentioned the noble truth of suffering as sometimes in a more easy to understand manner, more mundane type of manner, that the birth is suffering, aging is suffering, getting sick is suffering, death is suffering, being with the sort of the undesired, unliked people are suffering. So likewise, I mean, these things are quite easy to understand. But on the other hand, certain other suttas, Buddha mentioned that the Panchupadanaskandha dukkha, in a way, the clinging aggregates are making the suffering. Now, this is something that we can actually get into the depth of the Dhamma, where how we can recognize the clinging part and how we can understand these clinging aggregates, the clinging aggregates of form, clinging aggregate of feelings, clinging aggregate of perceptions, clinging aggregate of mental formations, and then the clinging aggregate of consciousness. Now that is where actually the Satipatthana practice become quite relevant, because in order to understand these 5 clinging aggregates, you need a kind of a practical approach. So probably we all have fair amount of theoretical understanding about these clinging aggregates, but what is important is to recognize them when they are available, when they are coming forward, when they are more prominent, and most importantly when our mind being attached to these any of any of the aggregates. So that is where, particularly say for example, when we are practicing Kayanupassana, the mindfulness on the body, so there we get a comprehensive understanding about how clinging happens towards the form aggregate. And when we are practicing Vedananupassana, in a way the practice of feelings, be mindful on the feelings, and there we actually have a fair understanding about feelings aggregate. And when we are practicing Chittanupassana, the mindfulness on the mind, then we are actually slowly start to explore about the mind's world, and that is where we can recognize the perceptions aggregate, formations aggregate, and the consciousness aggregate. Now, when we step into Dhammanupassana, that actually have another chance to revisit the forms aggregate, and again, there itself the uh, five ringing aggregates are very well defined as a part of the Dhammanupassana. So there we can see kind of a systematic revisiting has happened to each and every aggregate. So that help us to practically understand how important this clinging, the grasping happens in our mind. So in other words, actually through the Satipatthana practice, we are exploring the Dukkha Satya. We are exploring the noble truth of unsatisfactoriness. So in order to explore that, actually it is good to have a theoretical understanding, but most importantly we need to have certain kind of skill to be developed. So that is why fair amount of understanding or the practical experience on mindfulness is important. So as we are developing mindfulness, it leads our understanding, or it leads ourselves into the concentration. So we are not only being mindful, but as we are developing mindfulness, our mind starts to get concentrated. So once it is concentrated, now we need to explore all these different aggregates. Now that is where actually the wisdom part starts to develop. So we can say it is the seed of the wisdom that we are trying to sow now. We can use different terms, like say we are trying to recognize all these different phenomena, the present moment phenomena, whatever related to the body, whatever related to the feelings, and various kinds of thoughts available in the mind, various mind states. So likewise different spectrum of phenomena we can recognize. But in order to do that, first of all we need to have fair amount of mindfulness, and again we need to have some amount of concentration. So when those are available, now it's a matter of recognizing, it's a matter of investigating these phenomena that leads to fairly understanding each and every phenomena a little deeply and comprehensively. So that is why we can say sati is now coupled with the sampajanya. The mindfulness is fairly now incorporated with the clear comprehension. Now actually we are step into the understanding part. Because if we consider the noble truth of suffering, Buddha explained that in three levels. First of all, there is suffering. So we need to see there is suffering. It is not that I am suffering or it is not my suffering, but I am recognizing there is suffering. So there is body, there are bodily phenomena, there are agitations, so there are emotions, there are feelings. Now kind of objectively looking at these phenomena. Now with that understanding, say more and more we are trying to clearly comprehend about them, then we are very much fulfilling what Buddha asked, that in terms of the first noble truth, that we need to fully understand that dukkhaṃ arya saccang pariññaya, and then pariññāta. So the first noble truth has to be fully understood, and then one has fully understood the first noble truth. So in order to do that, as I mentioned, certain skills have to be developed, and once they are available, you can apply those skills and try to understand, fully comprehend all these five aggregates, so that in a way we can say we are trying to fulfill the first noble truth practically, experientially, as one's kind of a direct knowledge. And then when we are getting to the second noble truth, Buddha mentioned that the second noble truth is craving, tanha, desire, different types of craving, sensual desires and desire to become and desire to get rid of. Now we are getting to the mental world to understand the kind of the reason of suffering, reason of grasping. Now that is in a way interestingly Buddha mentioned in certain other areas, certain other suttas, like in the Anguttara Nikaya Thika Nipata, where Buddha mentioned how conditioned phenomena or how conditionality, cause and effect, is leading towards suffering. Cause and effect relationship is leading towards suffering. When ignorance is available, then various mental formations are happening. When mental formations are available, then the different kinds of consciousness, establishment of consciousness going to happen. When it is there, the name and form going to happen. It leads to the availability or the activation of the 6 bases, salayatana, and it leads to the contact, and it leads to various different kinds of feelings. As feelings arise, we have different types of craving. Now that means the formation of this craving is in a way conditioned, and ultimately the upadana, the clinging happens, and we get on to the suffering, unsatisfactoriness as a result of this causal reaction. Now this manner Buddha explained, so this samudaya side, the arising part of the paticcasamuppada or the conditionality, dependent origination, actually can be recognized as the samudaya satya, as the cause of suffering. Now actually we can take a step into the nirodha satya. So there Buddha mentioned nirodha satya is the opposite of this process. So how about not having ignorance? If ignorance is not present, then there can't be any kind of mental formations. So if there are no such mental formations, constructions, sankhara, then there can't be the establishment of the consciousness. If consciousness is not available, then there can't have the name and form, namarupa. Then there we cannot have the activation of the salayatana, the 6 sense bases. There again we can't have 6 types of contact. Then we can't have different types of say craving, desires. When there are no desires, then there can't be any grasping. If there is no grasping, then there can't be any kind of becoming process, again born into some state. If there is no such birth, then there can't be any kind of aging, sickness, different kinds of other forms of suffering. So that means the cessation of suffering, that means the cessation of craving. So you can see we can relate this whole process into a kind of a situation how conditioned our suffering is and how we can reverse that process. So if we know that the suffering arises due to some sort of a conditioned phenomena or conditioned process, and probably we can try to avoid that process. So if in other terms we can say, whenever we are not suffering, whenever we are able to cease craving, that means we are living in that the third noble truth, that is the nirodha satya. Now how we can do that? Now we can theoretically understand, okay, there is such kind of a theoretical argument, such kind of a logic is possible, but how we can implement that? Then first of all we need to remove avidya, ignorance. Then that means we need to have fair amount of understanding. As I mentioned, so once mindfulness is established, we are trying to explore, or we are trying to examine, investigate various phenomena. It could be bodily phenomena, it could be various different kinds of feelings, it could be perceptions, it could be mental formations or different forms of different types of consciousness. Now these 5 clinging aggregates we are now trying to explore, examine. Actually that very examination helps to develop fair amount of understanding. Now when understanding is available, actually Buddha mentioned it will develop some sort of a dispassion. Actually, in order to understand this part, actually why we are grasping, why we are holding things, why we are attached to things. So if we think that part, So that is because we don't know the reality. We think that we may get happiness, we may get satisfaction, things are lasting for some time, things are lasting forever, things are permanent. So this kind of an association, this kind of a grasping may give a lot of satisfaction, and things may happen under my control, things are governable. So this is the kind of a wrong understanding or delusion we have, ignorance we have. Because of that the grasping happens, because of that the holding happens, clinging happens. But on the other hand, how about if we have kind of an understanding of what we are grasping? So what is their true nature, proper nature, correct nature? So what is their real nature? So if we are able to understand their real nature, then what we assumed is wrong. Actually, we assume that things are permanent, things may give us a lot of happiness, satisfaction, and things can be controlled, and things I can handle properly the way I like, I want. So this is the wrong perception we had. But more we observe these phenomena properly in an unbiased manner, then they are showing their true nature. So this is where we do fair amount of investigation onto different forms of phenomena. Maybe it's a bodily phenomena, different kinds of feelings, pleasurable feelings, painful feelings, equanimous feelings, and maybe different kinds of perceptions, maybe different mental formations, and different kinds of perceptions, consciousness. And all these physical and mental phenomena, more and more we investigate, then actually we get a clear picture of how they truly behave. Now this is the part actually Buddha mentioned as the Satipatthana Bhavana. In the Satipatthana Bhavana, we are carefully investigating all these different phenomena in order to know their true nature. So then one aspect is that we may start to understand their impermanent behavior. We start to understand their unsatisfactory behavior. We may understand their non-self behavior. Now what happened when we have such kind of an understanding, what happens to the mind? Now that is also interesting. Now when we are having such kind of an understanding, so the previous ignorance will fade away, and we may have kind of a dispassion, because we know now what we were attached to is something not permanent. It can't give us lasting happiness. It can't have my control. So things are happening due to various causes and conditions on which I have no control at all. So then what the purpose of attaching to this kind of a situation, this kind of a phenomena? So these kind of insights slowly make a drastic change in our mind. So it will loosen the grasping, it will loosen the attachment, and as a result of that, now the upadana, the clinging part, slowly fades away, reduced, and now we come to a situation, even though we see things, the mind does not interested about them. Even though we hear things, mind is not interested about them. Even though we smell various different kinds of odors, mind is not interested of grasping. Even though we taste various delicious food, still the mind is not interested of grasping them. And when different tangibles also happen, mind is not interested in grasping. And even when different thoughts probably happen in the mind is not bothered about it. Now this is a very interesting phenomena. I mean, these things are experienced by the yogis. Now this is not limited to kind of a theoretical, dogmatic kind of a explanation. Rather, when you are more and more investigating phenomena, so this kind of behavioral change happens in the mind. Cognitive change happens in the mind. Now, on such situation, suppose that the person is practicing walking meditation. So he may be in the walking path. He can see various things, maybe flowers, maybe clouds, maybe trees. But still, mind is not interested of going and grasping and being and attaching and getting delighted with those things. Rather, mind has kind of a seclusion. Then even when a beautiful song is heard, still mind is not that interested of enjoying that. Rather, mind is minding its own business. We can say like that. So it likes its seclusion, it likes its freedom rather than being attached to those different phenomena, because internally it is now equipped with fair amount of understanding. Now that understanding is not a merely book knowledge. It is not simply a theoretical understanding, but experientially, as I mentioned, again and again, we have investigated those different kinds of phenomena. As a result of that, a deeper, insightful understanding, experiential understanding is inculcated to the mind. As a result of that, now it is not grasping things. But probably we may feel it like a kind of a boring experience, because typically we like excitement. Typically we like kind of extreme situations, even worrying and getting involved, regretting, or different kinds of impulsive activities. So this is the kind of extremes that typically we are dealing with. But now mind is in a situation where it is not interested of getting involved into things. Now it has become fairly dispassionate, disenchanted. Now these are in a way signs of the cessation. Now if we don't have proper understanding about this kind of an experience, probably we may even give up meditation, because now we feel bored. There are no excitement, there are no real blissful experiences. Now things are getting kind of blurred, very much like mixed up. Everything is appear like flux. On such situation, probably even mind, we may even feel little bored. But we need to continue our practice. As we continue, then probably the mind may even completely let go of all the conditioned phenomena. But it is temporary experience. Temporary mind has let go of all the phenomena. And Buddha give a very beautiful term there. Buddha mentioned it as the Tadanga Nibbutthi, kind of a release of the mind happened because of this insightful experience. Different types of insights are available, vipassana knowledges are available. Mind is being equipped with these insight knowledges, strengthened by these insight knowledges. As a result of that, temporarily mind has released. Now mind is not associating anything. Mind is not associating forms, mind is not associating sounds, not associating smells, taste, touch, thoughts, and mind also become completely empty. Now this is kind of a striking situation, because typically mind is used to grasping, holding, attaching, desiring, but now mind has become fairly spacious. Nothing to attach, nothing to associate, nothing to hold, nothing to grasp, nothing to claim as me, mine, myself. So then mind become empty, and this is another level of cessation we can call. So slowly then one has to enhance this experience. So one has to clearly recognize this experience, have to appreciate that experience, even though at the beginning it appear like quite boring, kind of monotony. Still one has to enhance this experience again and again. One has to come to this experience and allow the mind to be little consolidate that experience. Because if we simply get back, then we can't really appreciate this experience. We can't really understand what is really going on. Rather, at this kind of a level, we need to some sort of habituate the mind. We need to familiarize with this experience. Now, when one is familiarizing with this experience, then slowly one may understand, okay, now mind has the capacity to stay alone. Previously it couldn't. It wanted something always to attach with, hold with. But now the yogi may understand, okay, even though nothing is available to attach, still mind can maintain that freedom. Now there is no craving, there is no grasping. Kind of a freedom, kind of a release is available. So when Buddha is defining the third noble truth, these are the terms actually he mentioned. Yo tassayeva tanhaya asesa viraga nirodho. Chago, patinissaggo, mutti analayo. Now these terms actually quite relevant to what we were explaining. Tanhaya asesa viraga nirodha. Now this is not yet the complete fading away of craving, but this is a kind of a temporary subsiding of craving, we can say, because of those insights knowledge. To some extent now craving has subsided, so that part is available now. Chago, so whatever the conditioned phenomena are now given up. Patinisaggo, that means things have relinquished. Now nothing to associate, things have relinquished. Mutti, so now mind is experiencing freedom. Analayo, now kind of non-reliance is there. Doesn't want to have anyone to associate, any phenomena to associate. So in a way, mind has become independent. So this kind of a behavior, this kind of an experience is something that Buddha call as the cessation of craving, fading away of craving, and that is something that we have to be realized. Now that realization, as I mentioned, may not happen in the full fledged manner at the beginning, but it may be a kind of a momentary release. When the insight knowledge are coming to fulfillment, to some kind of a maturity, then temporarily mind get released. Sometimes it might not be even noticeable when it is happening only for a couple of seconds, couple of moments. But later, when the practitioner, the yogi, again and again developing vipassana, so this experience become repeatable. So he is now confident, okay, something is happening. I am continuing my practice. It is possible to understand the rising and passing away of different phenomena. Samude dhammanupassiva viharati, vaya dhammanupassiva viharati. Samude vaya dhammanupassiva viharati. So likewise Buddha explained in the Satipatthana Sutta. So more and more one understand this impermanent, unsatisfactoriness and unself nature, then the release become more possible and more durable, lasting for more time, and it is repeatable. Now slowly, as one become familiar with this experience, now one has to fairly consolidate that experience. That means, say, during the sitting session, one is capable of experiencing this kind of an unattached, unassociated, non-grasping state of mind. Say he can now expand that to, say, 10 minutes, expand that to 15 minutes, expand that to 30 minutes. So likewise now he is fairly getting familiarized with this kind of an unattached state of mind. Now when he is doing that, so he is coming to a different kind of a domain. Now previously he was in a kind of a conditioned world where every time mind getting attached to some kind of a conditioned phenomena, but now mind is not interested of attaching to such conditioned phenomena. Mind has found its own kind of a freedom, not having anything, not associating anything. So that again and again Buddha repeated in the Satipatthana practice, Anisitocha viherati nachakinchi loke upaditi. Now mind is capable of living alone, living in seclusion, without associating anything, without grasping anything. Now this is something that we need to cultivate. This is something that we need to realize. So with respect to the Nirodha Satya, actually Buddha mentioned, so Nirodha Satya has to be realized. It is not that through the book I can read it. It is not that through a sermon that I can logically understand it. But practically one has to realize it. So in order to practically realize that, then we need to go through a fair amount of patipada, fair amount of practice. So as a result of such practice only, one can realize even that temporary release, what Buddha referred as a tadanga nibbute. So there are certain suttas like say Atadipa Sutta in the Kanda Samyutta. There Buddha mentioned about this tadanga nibbute. So when this proper understanding happens, the true nature of the phenomena is realized. So as a result of that, the mind's worrying, lamenting, grasping, tensions, stresses, and all different kinds of suffering is abandoned because craving is not there, cause of suffering is not there, and the practitioner may experience kind of a calmness, experience some kind of a peacefulness because of the understanding, because of the wisdom, the support of the wisdom. So, as I mentioned, in the Dukkha Nirodha Satya, Buddha mentioned, so this most important thing in order to realize the Dukkha Nirodha Satya is this development of the wisdom. So when fair amount of wisdom is available, when that support is available, then one can maintain one's mind in that unassociated, non-grasping state for a longer time. Because the mind being strengthened, mind being equipped by that wisdom. So then in a way we can get into another aspect. On certain occasions Buddha explain Nirodha Satya differently, where he may tell, okay, when the mind is associating something, it has kind of a vibration, it has kind of a shaking nature because it is associating something. Whatever we associate is conditioned. So whenever mind is associating something impermanent, when it is changing, so the mind also getting shaken. It is also disturbed. When the mind being associating something which is not in our control, and when that is changing according to its own different types of conditions, then we get shocked, we get shaken. And we may associate something expecting happiness, pleasure, but if it is changing, if it is providing unhappiness, then we being shaken. So in that sense, Buddha mentioned Nisitasa Chalitang. So whenever one associates something, so that person, whatever it is, whoever it is, has kind of a shaking nature. He can't maintain that happiness, because where the mind being attached is completely non-governable, beyond our control, completely impermanent, unsatisfactory. So as a result of that, so if we associate such kind of a phenomena, ultimately we are going to suffer. Then the result is the other way around. Anisitassa chalitang natti. Buddha mentioned, if you are not associating anything at all, then there can't be such kind of a shaking nature, because you are not associating anything at all. Anisitassa chalitang natti. Now that is where we are coming to the Nirodha Satya. Now when one is trying to realize Nirodha Satya, so the mind can't have any phenomena to associate, any object to associate. In other terms, we can say mind is experiencing some kind of an objectless behavior, and it is not experiencing any bodily phenomena, not feelings, not perceptions, not mental formations, and the consciousness is not established. Now, on such situation, Buddha mentioned, Chalite asati passaddi. Now, when there is no vibration, then there is no shaking situation, so the calming down is natural. The kind of tranquility is natural. When tranquility is available, passadya sati nati nohoti. So when tranquility is available, no point, and there is no reason for looking forward. There is no reason for looking a new state, because at the present moment you are quite happy, quite contented. So the mind has become fully contented, tranquil. Then no point of going and finding happiness outside, because internally it is contented, internally happy, internally tranquil. Natiya asati agati gati nohoti. And Buddha mentioned, when such inclination is not there, when such looking forward is not there, then coming and going is not there. Coming and going does not happen. Any movement doesn't going to happen, because it is fairly stilled, calm, tranquil. Because always, why our mind typically shaking? Why our mind can typically go and grasp something? Because internally I don't have happiness. Internally, I am unsatisfied. Internally, I am little frustrated. Now the mind is trying to look at happiness from outside. But now here, in this situation, mind understood that all the conditioned phenomena are unsatisfactory, impermanent, no point of depending on that. Now it has been let go of. As a result of that, now mind is experiencing stillness, calmness, tranquility. And if that is available now, internally such kind of a peacefulness is available, then why the reason it is necessary, it has to go out? No reason. So mind is experiencing that stillness, calmness, tranquility. Then no going here and there. So the movements have stopped, mind has become stilled. Agati gatiya asati chutupapato nohoti. Then birth and death is no more. Because the birth and death to happen, that conditionality has to happen, movement has to happen, grasping has to happen, becoming has to happen, birth has to happen. But if there is no such kind of a grasping, if there is no such kind of a movement, agitation, any of those, then there is no any birth. If there is no birth, there is no death. Chutupapate asati neva ida na hurang na ubhemantari. So Buddha mentioned, if rising or the birth and death is not available, and you are not there, you are not here, you are not in between. Esevanto dukkassa. And that is the end of suffering. Now this is a very interesting way that Buddha put it in to understand the Nibbana, understand the Nirodha Satya. So when the mind is not associating anything, so it has a fairly deep meaning. It doesn't mean that the in a negative way that mind has become empty, so it's a kind of a nihilistic kind of an attitude. Rather, it is a really rich kind of an understanding. So this emptiness is not a nihilistic negative type of a situation. Rather, it is a kind of an experience that one may encounter as a result of the strength of the wisdom. Fair amount of wisdom support is available. That wisdom is the one that causing the mind to be released. So whenever a yogi is experiencing, even for a moment, even for a short period, so such kind of a temporary release, so he need to really understand its value, has to really understand its sort of the nature, and then only he may have kind of a convincing that I need to further develop that. Because as I mentioned, typically we appreciate, we give marks, we give value only when I am available, only when I am given kind of the first place, when I am recognized, when I is there, I am happy. But here, at this particular experience, there is no I. There is no I making. There is no mind making. So the mind has become fairly empty. So there is no kind of a person here. You are not making a person here. So one is not preparing a self here. One is not promoting a self here. So that is why, I mean, Buddha's teaching, in other terms, Buddha's advice, so his teaching is extremely important, this kind of a situation, at this kind of a juncture, because otherwise our own kind of a mind, it is very unlikely that we would appreciate. So we need to have that Parato Gosha, we need to have that true teaching coming from the Buddha to understand the value of that realization, understand the value of that experience. So whenever one realize, whenever one experience such kind of an empty nature of the mind, unattached, unassociated state of the mind, so we have to convince ourselves, okay, this is something that I have to develop. Still, I am not really capable of understanding this, doesn't matter. Better I continue this, better I associate this, better I consolidate this. Maybe now he is trying to have that even at the, say, walking path, because he is now having it in the sitting session. Now he is capable. Now maybe he can even have that in the sitting, in the walking path, because now he is further and further cultivating that path, further and further familiarizing with that path. So likewise, we can say slowly, so the person become more and more familiar with that unassociated nature of the mind, non-grasping state of the mind, unattached state of the mind. So when that is available, one can say, so he has fairly realized this third noble truth, fairly experientially realized the third noble truth. But still, it may be temporary, because we can't say, we can't guarantee that all the defilements are uprooted. Whenever a defilement arises, again we may lose that freedom. So that still the risk is available. That's why Buddha refer it as a tadanga nibbuti. So when conditions are available, when proper wisdom is available, when fair amount of understanding is available, then the release is possible, but still not fully consolidated. It is not fully realization. So then we require a path to accomplish that full realization. So that is where the fourth noble truth is available. We can discuss that in the next session. So with that note, I like to conclude today's Dhamma sermon. Now we can get on to the question and answer session.
Thank you, Venerable Sir. Thank you very much. So the floor is open. As usual, either you can just unmute and ask your question, you can raise your hand, you can use the chat function. I have nearly 30 people online. So this was really a very interesting walkthrough of all of the, not stages, but the linked experiences to experience the third noble truth, not just to understand it. People are usually shy at the beginning.
So wisdom house. So you are in the wisdom house. So you should have experienced Nibbana then.
No, the wisdom house is really a safe place for us to develop ourselves using spirituality. So it started off as coaching for people. I'm a doctor and a coach, but we wanted to incorporate spirituality in leadership for this century. We felt that people were very materialistic. So it's not Buddhist, but it is to, I'm Buddhist, but others who are not Buddhist also participate, looking at a kind, compassionate kind of leadership for this. So it's a goal. It's not, we haven't realized it yet.
At least temporary, now you have to try to realize it. Probably you can start a meditation session in the wisdom house. So it is not only, the theoretical knowledge. Probably, as you mentioned, so from different approaches, we can educate people and we can invite them to practice mindfulness. So such kind of a thing also would be more interesting.
It was really interesting. I was listening to you, and as you said, where we are going with this is a state where the mind doesn't attach, doesn't react. There is no I making, there is no my making. And for many of us, this is still theoretical because we haven't experienced this. Can you maybe explain to us in your own practice, how you relate to this, and because you are a known practitioner?
Actually, now it is not actually my own private experience, rather than say whenever we develop mindfulness, time to time people may experience such kind of a unassociated state. It is not that you have to have a lot of years of experience even, but the important thing is that momentary experience is not properly recognized, because as I mentioned, typically we give marks, we give values when I making is there, when I am there, when fair amount of self is represented. But as I mentioned, when one is going through the practice, so this I making, mind making fairly reduced. There is no chance for that. So what is experience appear like little bored. So even when practitioners are experienced, so this sort of an experience, this sort of a release of mind, so probably we may miss that. because we are not giving enough emphasis, enough value, enough appreciation to that sort of a mind state. So that is why Buddha's teaching is extremely important. Some guidance is extremely important, and some sort of a discussion with the Kalyana Mitta is extremely important, because otherwise it is very unlikely that we ourselves may realize it. We ourselves may consolidate that state. We ourselves probably experience that, we may ignore that, and we may think, okay, this is something useless. I better change my posture, I better change my meditation object, I better change the meditation center, I better change the teacher, and I am now looking somewhere else. So this would be the most typical frequent approach, frequent reaction. So whenever we encounter this kind of a mind state. So that is why I think we need very good guidance in the vipassana practice when one is reaching this sort of a situation. And people are, when actually, by the way, another interesting thing is now many people are talking about this. Now it is not that only I am talking here. Rather, if you consider, say, many monasteries, real meditation centers that people are practicing honestly, they are doing some dedicated practice, that many people are experiencing it and many people are talking it. They are openly talking, okay, I experienced, like I went through this kind of situation, I understood how things are impermanent, how bodily phenomena are arising and passing away, how feelings are impermanent, how they quickly changing. So likewise, they are honestly talking their experience, and while they are continuing that, unexpectedly some kind of a jerk happens sometimes. Unexpectedly the mind become released. So that's a sign, some sort of a, say, unexpected situation. Now if you are expecting something, then it is adversely affect on the meditation, because that very expectation is a availability of craving, availability of some kind of an unsatisfaction. But if you have given up, okay, let things happen, I am just continuing my practice, that's all, I am just bothered about the present moment, whatever happens I am ready to accept, that's it. So that if one is practicing with such attitude, and he is quite ready to experience this kind of an insight, because if we are expecting it too much, then that itself can become a hindrance.
Thank you, Venerable Sir. I'm sure that there are very strong meditators in the audience. I know particularly now we have more than 30 people here. So it'll be really good to use this opportunity to maybe share with the Venerable Speaker, your own experience. Do you recognize in your practice? And as he said, it's very easy to let it pass or neglect or react in a way to think it's nothing, but actually non-grasping that moment is actually a milestone. But as you said, not to, without expectation, embracing whatever happens. I think after the summer, people are even more shy. It's been quite hot in Europe. Maybe meditation practice has reduced. Please feel free. I don't want to call on anybody.
I think Udaya has unmuted, and few have, yeah.
Ilanga? Udaya, go ahead, Udaya.
Go raise hand.
So I have Ilanga. Is that right? It says Ilanga's iPad. Go ahead.
Yes, Bante, this is one of Ilanga's Dhamma friends speaking. You mentioned about releasing of the consciousness at some point when the dispassion happens. The mind is released and the consciousness in itself is released. I don't know whether I understood it correctly or not. How would you experience that in a practical sense during meditation, the releasing of the consciousness? That's my question.
Yeah, I mean, we can refer certain suttas how Buddha is teaching that. So typically, our consciousness either attach either associate the form, or it either associate kind of a feeling, or it either associate kind of a perception, or it either associate kind of a mental formation. Now these five aggregates are interrelated in that sense. So the consciousness to properly establish, consciousness to properly hold, consolidate, it needs the support of either from the form, either from the feelings, either from the perceptions, either from the say mental formations. So that is how it is living in other sense. But in the vipassana practice, so we are slowly minimizing this attachment. And in other sense, so the consciousness is not giving enough food. We can interpret like that. Now we are not feeding the consciousness through the forms. We are not feeding the consciousness through the different kinds of feelings. And not with perceptions, not with different mental objects, not with different mental states. So that type of a practice is going on. So then very much like one would say, all of a sudden say I experience some kind of a halt, standing still. I was continuing, but all of a sudden everything became blank. It became blackout. It became kind of a blank. My mind stopped. Or I felt like I have lost everything. I have lost the address. So these are different ways that people are referring such a situation, because typically we need some kind of an orientation. So the consciousness requires some kind of an orientation. Okay, I am in Sri Lanka, I am in Nisarnanaya, now the time is 8:25. So likewise, I need all these different coordinates to define myself. But when one is continuing vipassana at a given moment, all these coordinates, all these references, all these orientations may be for a temporary period one can't perceive. So that is why, I mean, one can say it's a kind of a jerk. So when that happens, so one doesn't need to afraid of that, but again and again continue one's practice. So people are having that confidence. Again and again they are continuing. This experience is repeatable. And then they fairly understand, okay, something has happened, nothing to worry, nothing wrong happened. So I can still live, nothing went wrong. So they are becoming more and more confident about what they are experiencing. Yeah.
Did you want to go next? Or Ilanga, did you want to have a follow-up?
No, it was my friend who wanted to speak and raise the question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Avasarai, Hamduroni, I have a question with regard to the methodology that you mentioned, if I understood it correct.
Yeah.
You mentioned that in the first place that one needs to cultivate mindfulness, and then you reach a level of concentration. And at that point, you start reflecting on the five aggregates. And as a result of that, the next step would be a state of non-attachment in the mind. Is that correct, or did I understood it correct?
Yeah, I mean, we can say so because, I mean, it's difficult to develop concentration without mindfulness, because mindfulness is the entry point to the practice. And when one is developing mindfulness, as a result of that, so your mind start to remain in the present, and it starts to associate whatever the selected phenomena. So actually, at the beginning, we need to associate something. At the beginning, we need to concentrate onto something, focus onto something. So in order to do that, again and again, various say mental exercises are done, like mindfulness on breathing, mindfulness of rising and falling, maybe kind of say walking, etc. Now when it is developed, okay, now mind is in a way tamed to live in the present moment, associating something in the present moment. So that means fair amount of concentration is available. And if we allow, or if we ask the mind to stay in a particular phenomena, it may stay there for longer time. That means a fair amount of investigation is possible now. So that means we can start vipassana. That means whatever the object that we were mindful, now we can continue to explore, continue to examine. So what is its real behavior? Now this is the moment that we are trying to understand about these different phenomena, and in other terms we are trying to develop vipassana. So that when these conditions are available, when these skills are developed, we can say, okay, we are get on to different types of insights. Actually, Buddha explained the development of different faculties. Say, saddha, the faith faculty is required. Then the virya, the effort faculty is required. Sati, the mindfulness faculty is required. Then the samadhi, the concentration faculty is required. Wisdom, the panya faculty is required. Now, it is not merely mindfulness, it is not merely concentration, but it's a kind of a group effort. It's a collaboration of different faculties and the balancing of faculties. That is what ultimately produced the desired results.
Thank you. Hamdurani, one more question. Then how do you differentiate between mindfulness and concentration? What is the difference?
Yeah, okay. Now, now it's a very interesting question because now they are fully interrelated, I would say. Because if you need to properly concentrate onto one thing, so that means you need to forget about the past and forget about the future, and you need to be in the present moment. I'm talking about the present moment related, mindfulness related practice. So in such concentration to happen, so you have to be aware of what is happening in the present moment. Have to let go of the past, let go of the future, and fully associate the present moment. So that means the mindfulness has to be available. But while you are being mindful, many phenomena are available, many situations are available, many incidents may be happening, different phenomena are available. But now you are selecting certain suitable phenomena, some easy phenomena for you to develop other whatever the qualities. Now assume that you selected the breath, you selected another whatever the phenomena. Now more and more you are associating that phenomena, breathing. Now breathing becomes your primary focus, and then ultimately mind start latching with it, mind start associating that. Even though in breath happens, it is there, out breath happens, it is there, in breath happens, it is there, out breath happens, it is there. Now it is fairly concentrated, our mind is fairly collected there. Now this is where even the phenomena are changing, but again and again mind get concentrated onto these different phenomena. A new phenomena happens, mind is concentrated there. Another new phenomena happens, mind being concentrated there. So mindfulness and concentration are fairly interrelated here, and I think that is how we can, in terms of a vipassana practice, we can define, okay, the momentary concentration and again the support of the mindfulness are fairly interrelated.
Thank you. Then is vipassana the reflection on the five aggregates? Did I understand it correct, or is it wrong?
Yeah, I mean, when this skill is available, now you need to investigate. So mindfulness is now available, fairly established, and you can maintain your attention, you can maintain your focused concentration is now available. Now don't stop there. Then Buddha advised, okay, now do the investigation. Properly examine what is really going on. Now say, for example, just to give you a practical example, say you are keeping your attention on the breath. Now you can do it. You are not getting distracted. Now you can do it. You can understand, okay, now in breath is happening, now out breath is happening, now in breath is happening, now out breath is happening. You can continue like this, but that is not enough. Now the concentration is available, mindfulness is available, and some sort of even little happiness is also available, because the hindrances are subsided. But Buddha asks now, start investigation. So the investigation is the one helping us to clearly comprehend the phenomena. Now you may The investigation tell us, okay, this breath is somewhat longer. This breath is somewhat shorter. This breath is somewhat warmer. This is little cooler. Even though this breath appear like a single breath, it has little parts. It is a series of little breaths. And even though this, say, breathing appear as a kind of a, continuous thing, it has little changes. Say there's a beginning of in-breath, there's a middle of in-breath, there's the end of in-breath. So they have some significant differences. And just before the beginning of the out-breath, there's a little absence of phenomena, kind of a gap. And then the beginning of the out-breath, beginning of the middle of the out-breath, end of the out-breath. So that kind of differences are available. Just before the beginning of the next in-breath, okay, there's a little gap. So likewise, now you are trying to comprehend the full picture. Now that is where the investigation starts. On other terms, we can say your mind is now training on the yoniso manasika. Rather than simply staying on the surface, your mind being trained to do some closer look. Yeah, that is what I referred as, you are getting on more focus into vipassana.
So how do you understand the transition point from mindfulness to concentration?
That's what I mean. They are interrelated. I mean, there is no transition. They are constantly supporting each other.
Thank you, Bhante.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, yes.
Venerable Sir, how does one get to vipassana from walking meditation?
Yeah, I mean, the same thing actually happens in the walking path as well. Now, actually, I have simply taken the, breathing as an example, but in walking also, say when your left foot is touching the ground, you have various sensations. When your right foot is touching the ground, you have various sensations. Now, these sensations are your primary focus. And then these sensations actually tell us their real nature. Actually, at the beginning, you can't immediately come to this level. Your mind get distracted, and since your eyes are open, you get further distracted. So you need more support at the beginning. That's why sometimes when we know the left foot is touching, we note it as left. When right foot is touching, we note it as right. Then later you are confident, okay, while using these labels, this noting, I can continue from this end to the other end. Mind has not distracted. Now mindfulness has fairly established, and some amount of concentration is also available, even though there are various other objects or distractions are available, but I have the skill to focus onto my step. It's in a way little challenging at the beginning, but later it is extremely beautiful practice. You may understand that as a extremely beautiful practice. Then you are quite confident, okay, now it is not necessary to even label. I can maintain a silent mind onto this walking. Now different sensations are now available. Hardness is available, softness is available, roughness is available, smoothness is available. Maybe little pains are available, aches are available, feelings are available. So likewise, so all these different phenomena now you can distinctly recognize. Now that is the clear comprehension. With respect to walking meditation, so you can clearly comprehend all these different kinds of phenomena. And not only that, later you may understand how impermanent they are and how quickly they arise and pass away. And all these vipassana aspects you can explore through walking meditation.
Also, you can transfer to breathing meditation, isn't it? You can go and sit down and then start breathing meditation.
Exactly. So that is why, say, example in Nissaranavanaya, we recommend 1 hour walking practice first, and then you go to the sitting. In a way, first of all, there a fair amount of work is done in the walking path, in the walking session. Now it's a matter of further refining your understanding or mindfulness, concentration, wisdom in the sitting session. So typically, the typically rule of thumb is first you do walking practice and then you get into the sitting practice.
Do you have to start with Kayanupassana first and then to Vedananupassana, Chittanupassana, or
Yes, that is the approach. That is a typical approach. Now, whenever we start walking meditation, actually we are in the Kayanupassana because we are experiencing.
already?
Already in the Kayanupassana.
So you can go to Vedananupassana from there when you sit down.
Either that or you can continue your Kayanupassana even while in the sitting.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a kind of a natural growing. Now you are developing Kayanupassana, and when fair amount of conditions are available, your mind getting more and more refined, matured, then automatically you start talking in terms of feelings. So it's a very natural shift. It is not that I am purposely shifting my attention to feelings, rather your understanding of the Kayanupassana slowly brings you to the Vedananupassana level.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah.
I also note that is it that Samantha Jayatillaka? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Bante, for that interesting talk. I just get some clarification for say someone who practices concentration, and then they go through the different stages of jhana, and so I presume then their mind will be prepared to a preparation to do insight practice. So if they do, say, go beyond the fourth jhana, say if they do 5, 6, 7, 8, that's someone practitioner. So towards the 8, the 5, 6, I think is the infinite space, infinite consciousness. I can't remember the third one, and the
nothingness and the neither perception. Yeah.
For such a person, for them to gain the insights of the last 4 stages of Bhante was saying, the disenchantment, dispassion, cessation, and the letting go, the non-clinging aspect, would they be able to get those insights easier? Are their minds more adapted to understand those insights? Is there a connection between those sort of jhana states in order to understand the dispassion, the disenchantment, dispassion, cessation, and the relinquishment? That's right.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, thank you for the question. Actually, we can relate like that. Actually, in the jhanic practice also, you need fair amount of letting go, because till you are there, you can't attain jhana, because it's a kind of, you need to letting go of the different sensual desires, all the different ill will and all the such attachments, in order to fairly maintain the jhanic experience. So whenever mind being again grasping, you can't fully in the jhana. So in that sense, we can say you are now familiarizing yourself into a very subtle state of mind and trying to maintain that for a long time. So in that sense, in the fairly very good mind training. So with that kind of a mind training, when you start vipassana, so you can continue that for a long time consistently, because your mind is fairly trained. Now, a person who immediately jump to vipassana may have a kind of a drawback, kind of a weakness, because he is little vulnerable to distractions, because he has to observe various phenomena very quickly, and he has to maintain his posture, he has to minimize all the other distractions, and he has to focus his attention only to the present moment, selected phenomena. Now it's a kind of a setup that he is trying to maintain, but it could be difficult if you don't have enough concentration. And when someone has developed fair amount of concentration, then he is capable of doing that kind of a vipassana practice for longer time, because his mind is well focused and he can maintain that focused attention for longer time. And it doesn't mean that through the vipassana practice that you are not developing these skills. Even though at the beginning you feel vulnerable, you're getting distracted, you can't do proper investigation, slowly your effort, continuous practice helps to develop the necessary skills. Say you started today investigating different phenomena, you were not that successful. Maybe tomorrow you are little successful. Maybe after a week, after a month, now you have developed fair amount of concentration, you have fair amount of say mindfulness, because the again and again attaining, again and again applying your mind to various phenomena, actually that very process sharpen our faculties, sharpen mindfulness, sharpen wisdom, sharpen concentration. So it's a kind of a continuous process. So on the way, while continuing this practice, different faculties are being sharpened. So therefore, there are advantages getting to quickly to the vipassana, and there are little disadvantages appear at the beginning as well.
So to get that non-clinging state, the non-perception, neither perception, nonsense, if you were to get that, does that equate to that non-clinging, or do you have to come out of the jhana and then contemplate on another object for achieve that non-clinging mind state?
Yeah, so that's also a very interesting question. Actually, that depends on how you define jhana. Now, certain schools of thought, certain schools actually talk about jhana into more deeper sense. So they are talking about the absorptions where you are very much like locked in the particular experience. On such situation, actually you can't move yourself. You have to emerge from jhana, and then only you are capable of doing kind of a reflection, understanding, doing kind of an investigation, because you are in a too deep state of samadhi. But on the other hand, one can still in the samadhi, but in a kind of a neighborhood state. Your mind is fairly concentrated, it's not wavering, it is not getting distracted, but still you are very well known about what is going on. The mindfulness is retained. So you are not fully lost in the concentration, rather you know what is really going on. So that is more capable of turning into vipassana, rather than now you simply stay quiet and experience this blissful state. Now you better reflect back. Now you better step back and watch really things in an objective manner, rather than simply getting into blissful experiences. So therefore, rather than getting into extremely deep concentrations, being knowingly experience some amount of concentration and then using that concentrated state, different kinds of feelings, different perceptions available in that concentration state also for vipassana is helpful. So therefore it depends on how you are approaching the dhyana practice. So certain teachers are telling, okay, you have to go to the extreme deep levels that you don't know anything, you are there. So that is extreme absorptions. But on the other hand, certain others are talking, okay, the jhana factors are available. Okay, the applied mind is available, sustained mind is available, and the rapture is available, the happiness is available, concentration is available, but you are very well aware of the situation. So things are happening right now under your purview, under your understanding. You are not fully absorbed. You are not fully lost in the concentration. So then things are happening under your supervision, like. So then the vipassana is possible.
Thank you, Bhante. That's a very clear explanation.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Anybody else? I see that in some of the sign-ons, there are several people on one call. So maybe as we're coming to about, we have about 10, 11 minutes left. Venerable Speaker, would you like to add more points? And then I would like to invite Venerable Halyali Vimalaratna as well to join the conversation.
Yeah, actually, as I mentioned, these are not states that only monks are talking. These are not only that I am talking, but these are now being heard in many parts of the world. So therefore, unlike several decades ago, now people are really getting to the practice, and many people are really honestly practicing. So therefore, it is something that we can appreciate, and we can be happy that Buddha's teaching is lived by the people. So therefore, I think as Buddhists, as practitioners, so it is something that we can encourage ourselves. And therefore, I invite all of you to start with mindfulness, because that would be easy entry point. And you can start with Kayanupassana and slowly explore different benefits of mindfulness, and slowly even get into the Vipassana practice as well. Yeah.
And just to reiterate, as you said, along this journey, it's really important to get feedback, get guidance, because there may be experiences that we don't recognize or we don't fully comprehend. So with that, I would like to invite Venerable Halyale Vimalratna to join the discussion and share his thoughts on the conversation today.
Venerable Chandraratana Thero, and all the other friends in Dhamma. I was unable to remind about Venerable Sumana Jyoti Thero, who is organizing this program.
He's my friend.
Yes. So we are so pleased to venerate you for your noble discourse based on the noble truth. Actually, in past as well as today, in future, every day we have to analyze the society according to the noble Buddha's teaching. Is totally included in this Four Noble Truths. The suffering is everywhere. The experience of each and everyone with different reasons. So you explained very well, and you made knowledge the people about more and elaborating the knowledge about suffering. And this is the path for the purification when we develop our understanding. So on behalf of Geneva International Buddhist Foundation, the committee of the IBF, as well as the community of IBF, and all the other great Dhamma friends around IBF, we are pleased to pay our deep respect to Venerable Chandraratana Thero, who contributed us with noble teachings. So wish you all the success to be in peace and with the success of this path of Dhamma. We are pleased to remind about our final session on 18th December. So once again, we are pleased to invite Venerable Chandraratana Thero with great teachings, as well as having opportunity to have a great discussion based on the topic. So we are thankful to Dr. Gaya Gamhavage, the director of WHO, and all the other noble Dhamma friends from Geneva International Buddhist Foundation. With the blessings of noble triple gems, all you may be in peace and happiness to achieve your noble goal in Dhamma. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity, and I really appreciate your kind words, and again some appreciation. And with to Vimala Dhamma Thero and all the Theros in the International Buddhist Center, I pay my respect, and thank you very much for the opportunity. Theruvan Sarnai.
Theruvan Sarnai.
Thank you to all our venerable speakers and participants, and to the all of the participants. I think I have about 30, but I think maybe more than 40 people participated because they participated in group. So thank you, venerable sirs, not just for today, but this whole series that sheds light on really very, very important parts of not just the theory, but the practice. So we look forward to seeing everybody in December 18th. But also remember that this recording will be available on the IBF website. So with gratitude and appreciation to all of you, wishing everybody health and peace, we will end this webinar today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Theruvan Sarnai.
Theruvan Sarnai.
Thank you, Teruvan Saranai.